Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette and our series, Is It Worth It? Today we'll take a closer look at the brand Brioni, specifically their jackets, to see if they are a good value, if they stand up to their high price tag, and we talk about the individual features. We actually cut the jackets apart and look at the history of this great Roman tailoring house. When in Rome, do as the Romans. And there's probably no tailoring house that is more closely associated with Rome than Brioni. Founded in 1945, they definitely made their mark as innovators in this space. On their website, their least expensive jacket starts at around $3,000, but you'll have no problem spending $5,000 or more on a suit or a jacket there. Naturally, with a price tag that high, we wonder what could possibly justify that price. Just like with many heritage brands, Brioni has undergone some changes. And to see how the quality has evolved, we actually cut open two jackets in the same size and very similar style from different periods to see how Brioni jackets have changed over time. Also, it allows us a first-hand look and how much handwork is actually in the jacket. But first, let's dive into some history of Brioni. It was founded in 1945 by master tailor Nazareno Fonticolo and the businessman and salesman Gaetano Savini. Together, they built the new Roman clothing empire. The original store was located at Via Barberini, where they catered to wealthy Romans who wanted a nice Roman suit. Seemingly, that must not have been an easy time after World War II. The Italians were still dealing with the Depression, but it seems like there are always some wealthy people who are willing to spend money on high-end clothing. The name Brioni is a tribute to Isole Brioni, which is an island that is now part of Croatia. At the time, it was a popular Italian holiday destination. It seems to me the name was meant to conjure up images of luxury living, decadent refinement, and all aspects of la dolce vita, or the sweet life. The brand Brioni came to prominence during Il Boom, the economic miracle. During the time, Italy saw a rapid expansion of economic growth, and if you're more interested in that part of the history, check out our video on why Italian men are so stylish. I mentioned earlier they were innovators, so they helped riding that wave of Italiomania by actually hosting the very first global menswear catwalk or fashion show in 1952 in Florence's Palazzo Pitti. Looking back, I wonder if it was somewhat of the precursor to today's Pitti Uomo. They must have seen it as a success because afterwards they rolled out this type of event throughout other countries. For example, they held North America's first menswear runway show in New York in 1954. And then they also engaged in what you would call today influencer marketing. Obviously, back then there was no YouTube, so they went with movie stars. Clark Gable, Cary Grant, Rock Hudson, Henry Fonda, they all had Brioni garments in their wardrobe. I mean, even men you typically wouldn't associate with fine Italian suits, such as John Wayne were wearing Brioni. As you can see from their 50s fashion illustrations, they were definitely more fashion-forward and not afraid to incorporate details such as horizontal seams in a jacket into their outfits. They also didn't shy away from bold colors, patterns, and textures. At the time, the Brioni silhouette was rather slim, and even the shoulders were a bit more natural and less padded than what you might have seen otherwise in places like the US, for example. Of course, with the Italian climate being somewhat warmer, they incorporated more lightweight fabrics into their garments. Things were going so well that by 1959, Brioni decided to open a state-of-the-art factory in Penne, Abruzzo, the hometown of Fonticoli. They were one of the first brands who decided to enter the ready-to-wear business with men's fashion-forward garments at a time when most men in Italy probably still preferred a bespoke suit. They also didn't just know how to market, but also how to sell. So they were one of the first ones to introduce trunk shows. They also had an early made-to-measure service called Su Misura. Another remarkable thing they spearheaded was this idea of becoming a total brand. So rather than just selling jackets and pants and suits to customers, they decided to add in accessories, shoes, hats, shirts, and so forth, so their customer could dress head to toe in Brioni and get that lifestyle vibe. Today you look at Ralph Lauren and may think, well, that's not anything special, but they did it in the 1950s. By the time the 1960s rolled around, Brioni had established themselves firmly, and they weren't afraid to push the envelope when it came to color, textures, and patterns. I mean, just look at these jackets. Even for today's dandy standards, these are quite bold. With being so successful, they realized that they had to ensure a steady stream of up-and-coming tailoring talent, and so they established a tailoring school in Penne called the Scuola di Alta Sartoria, or School of High Tailoring. Now, while it definitely helped to cultivate the next generation of Italian tailoring craftsmen, it was also paired with the understanding of modern manufacturing. That meant rather than having one person making one suit or jacket from start to finish, they started to specialize. It really became an assembly line operation where some people would only do sleeves, others only the collars, others only the pockets, and so forth. Fonticolo died in 1981 and Savini in 1987, so the company needed a new direction. In 1990, Umberto Angeloni became the CEO of the company and radically diversified it. That meant you could now get Brioni casual wear, sportswear, women's wear, and of course, accessories. The economic crisis of 2009 hit Brioni hard, and so investors made demands to move production out of Italy, but the company resisted it and kept everything in Italy. Instead, they expanded their ranges in more affordable, ready-to-wear lines. In 2011, Brioni was acquired by the French group Pinault, Granton, Redoute, which is now known as Kering, which is a big player in the clothing industry. Of course, they attempted to make the company more profitable because for decades, Brioni had resisted the overall more casualization of menswear. I mean, even then, the influence of athleisure and streetwear had already had a significant impact on the menswear landscape. So following the acquisition, you can definitely see that there was a updated cut. If you look at the more modern jacket, you can see it has clearly a much slimmer lapel. As you might recall, in the 2010s, slim lapels were all the rage. This stylistic reinvention, or whatever you want to call it, was undertaken by the art director Brendan Mullane. Of course, he could have been quite radical and taken Brioni into a very different direction and become a streetwear label. Instead, he decided to modernize his styling while still paying homage to the heritage of the Brioni style and DNA. In 2017, Justin O'Shea and Nina Maria Nietzsche continued that vision with the brand. They came up with their Primo suit in 2017, which was revamped in 2019, but it was Brioni's take on their new classic normal cut. Paired with a marketing campaign that included many celebrities, it helped to revitalize the brand with a younger clientele. At the same time, Brioni was also leaning more towards the luxury end of the market, incorporating cashmere, fine silks, and even stuff like vicuña. Today, Brioni's CEO is Mehdi Benabaji, and the creative director is Norbert Stumpfel. They're still a massive operation, operating more than 36 stores and employing more than 1,000 people in their tailoring facilities. That includes up to 400 artisanal tailors, and at their peak, Brioni was able to output 70,000 suits a year. According to press releases from the parent company Kering, it seems like Brioni had a strong rebound in 2022. So now that you know about the history of Brioni, what makes their suits so special and what is it about their styling or ethos? I just mentioned that they were able to produce bold jackets and suits, but overall, Brioni is a bit more formal focused. Now with a suit, the style of it is just one aspect. The way you feel and the confidence you portray when you know your suit costs $10,000 is another thing. Typically, a Brioni suit will have a very nice fabric, meaning when you touch it, the hands feels supple, luxurious, and soft. In my experience, they're similar to Chiton at that level, even though I think Chiton is usually even a bit softer. Isaia, though, also an Italian company, tries to also appeal to that. And if you're interested in a brand, we did a video about them too. If you compare it to Ralph Lauren and their purple label suits, they have a slightly different finish on the fabric, which makes the light sparkle in a different way and feel different. Brioni suits are also not Neapolitan, so you don't see double rows of pig stitching that are louder and more casual, so to speak. Brioni suits are more at home at the boardroom than at Pitti Uomo. And of course, if they're good for business environments, they're also worn for evening events. Now that's the Brioni ethos I knew growing up. During the last decade, they tried to shift it away from that, more towards no business, no tie, and more appealing to young men. They also introduced more luxury materials which are more expensive and emphasized aspects of sustainability. Product placement in movies these days is a huge industry, and Brioni continues to play that game. Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, or Daniel Craig. Tom Hanks in Angels and Demons, or Tom Cruise, Michael Fassbender, Jake Gyllenhaal, and last but not least, Brad Pitt, all wearing Brioni. Now that I look at this, I wonder if Fort Belvedere should run a campaign with Preston modeling like that. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. My guess is we'd see tons of comments about Preston's chiseled jawline. So what does a Brioni jacket today look like, and how is it different from an older Brioni jacket? Today they offer ready-to-wear and made-to-measure/bespoke jackets. In this video we focus on ready-to-wear. We haven't examined their made-to-measure or bespoke product. Ready-to-wear jackets start at around $3,000, with most of them being more in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. For a made-to-measure garment, plan to spend $10,000, especially if you want a nicer material. Stylistically, we got two Brioni jackets, both in the same size, to just see how things have changed. Now, the modern jacket has slimmer lapels. They're both single-breasted, two-button jackets. They both feature flap pockets. The modern jacket, though, has no vents. The other one has a double vent. And if you look at it, the overlapping flap in the back looks rather small, but it's held together by a little string so your vents don't gap. It's a nice detail which some brands still use today, but it's often forgotten, and if you have a big bum like me, it's a problem. Stylistically, the way the front quarters are cut, you can see the curvature remains the same. I'd say for a single-breasted jacket these days, it's rather closed, but it's very classic. If you look at the length of the jacket, it got shorter by 3 centimeters or 1 1/5 of an inch, which is in line with general stylistic trends. It also looks like the closing button moved up slightly on the new jacket, but overall, the design of the pattern and the darts remain the same. For example, both Brioni jackets have the dart that expands from the back of the front pockets all the way down to the hem. In terms of shoulder lines, both do have padding, but you can see that the old Brioni padding was noticeably thicker than the modern one. Again, this is in line with general trends. If you buy a Neapolitan jacket today, it will almost certainly not have any padding. But when I saw a vintage custom-tailored jacket from Naples, it had padding too. The sleeve heads remained roughly the same. So the fabric end from the sleeve is folded down, the fabric end from the shoulder is folded up, so you don't have much of a rollino or a waterfall sleeve head. The sleeve lining is sewn in by hand on both of the jackets and feels good. While the sleeve lining on the old jacket was plain off-white, on a new one it has a stripe, which is maybe something they just changed. I think many jackets have a striped sleeve lining. But interestingly, the main lining both is Brioni branded with a polo horse. So typically today when you think of polo, you think of Ralph Lauren, but Brioni utilized this pattern even before Ralph Lauren did, but he just made it more popular. Apart from the ready-to-wear jackets we had, Brioni of course also offers double-breasted jackets with peak lapels, 3-button jackets with patch pockets, stuff in muted colors, various jewel tones, as well as pastel tones. You could even get shiny green silk evening jackets, which I would more associate with a prom tuxedo rental, than with a multi-$1,000 suit company, but hey, each to their own. Of course, they also have the obligatory checks and bloods with fabrics and lots of yarn-dyed colors, giving you that rich depth of color. In line with their tradition, they also offer a range of dynamic evening options, which are quite fun to look at. Personally, I think I might get a headache looking at that last jacket for too long. So what's on the inside of a Brioni jacket? In terms of lining, I was surprised to see that even the modern jacket had a full lining, because these days going for the half-lined or unlined look is definitely more popular with younger men. Now, just touching the shoulders, the new jacket definitely felt softer, and that's also partially because it's a thinner pad. Looking at the irregular stitching on the collar felt, you can tell it is sewn on by hand. Both collars have a very comparable, somewhat stiffer interlining, but it's not too stiff and it suits the jackets well. Personally, I was surprised to see that both collars were fixated with a machine. The cheapest way to do things is to glue them on, and they don't do that. The traditional way to do it is to do it by hand, and typically that's what I would expect if someone tells me that it's a hand-tailored jacket. But it is much faster and much more economical to use a Strobel machine. These machines are quite cool to look at, and they save a lot of time in the manufacturing process, with a result that is, in my opinion, indistinguishable from a handmade product. So I totally see why they were going for it. Now, looking at the jacket fronts, both jackets are fully canvassed. The old jacket definitely has a slightly stiffer interlining, but both are by no means stiff. If you compare it to many English, American, or German bespoke jackets, these interlinings are on the softer side, with the newer jacket being even softer than the old one. Again, this is not a half canvas jacket or a glued jacket, which puts it in a fully canvas jacket that is sewn, but all the stitches, if you look at them, they're all highly regular. That's a proof that they use machines and not handwork. Now, if you work with an Italian bespoke tailor, especially one that is maybe more seasoned, chances are they'll do everything by hand, start to finish. So even though the price may be the same or less with a tailor, you get less handwork with a Brioni jacket. And that's not just a more recent happening, but it also happened back in the day. Looking at the front buttonholes, they're certainly both handmade, just like the lapel buttonhole. Comparing them side by side, I find the older ones more appealing, but that's just a personal preference. Now, looking at the sleeve cuff buttons, it's interesting to see that the old Brioni jacket doesn't have any, because it was a ready-to-wear jacket, and it's much easier to alter the sleeve length if you don't have fixed buttonholes already cut into them. On the other hand, the modern Brioni jacket has working surgeon cuffs. And while that used to be a hallmark of a high-end garment, that is certainly no longer the case, but I can see that if H&M offers that feature, Brioni felt they also had to offer it. Personally, for ready to wear, I think it's a bad idea to have pre-cut buttonholes, because it requires your alterations tailor to shorten the sleeve from the top, and chances that they screw up the sleeve head and it won't look again like it did in the beginning are quite high. The pick stitching on both jackets appears to be made by hand. Not entirely sure if there are new machines out there now that can completely mimic a hand stitch with a slight irregularity and the thread that disappears on the back, but typically I'm pretty sure this is both handmade. The new jacket has horn buttons, the old one seemingly Carozo buttons, but frankly, Brioni has a wide lineup of buttons, so I don't think there's much of a change. They have mother of pearl, horn, Carozo. It's really the standard for most higher-end men's garments. Stylistically, the biggest surprise for me personally was that they got rid of vents. No center vent, no side vents, but a ventless jacket. And that was something that was popular in the 20s and even the 30s, because when you stand, it looks even better. But when you sit or when you have the hands in your pockets, it is not looking as favorable anymore. Now, size-wise, Brioni comes in a huge range. US size going from 34 to 52. I think they also do a good job of describing all the features of the jacket. In terms of variety, they certainly have a lot of breadth and can cover any type of event or occasion you might want to think of. Now, when it comes to the suit construction overall, Brioni also rolls that into their marketing. So apparently there is a 220-step process and over 24 hours of workmanship that go into a garment. I would say compared to other brands, Brioni offers a good amount of information about what they do in their jackets. Of course, as an enthusiast, I'd like to learn even more about the softness of the interlining and what's special about it. But with a larger company, I can see how that would be difficult. After all, it seems to me that Brioni is not catering their garments to the value-conscious quality consumer. Instead, they emphasize access to over 800 different fabrics and the luxurious aspect of their items. There's definitely an emphasis on cashmere, silk, and wool. There's also various blends, such as cotton and silk or wool and silk, but they don't talk much about the fabric, the fineness of the wool, the hand, or what you can expect. So it's probably better to go to a store and touch it. Apart from the fabric offerings, they also had suede and nubuck blazers, or a dinner jacket with silk and 24 karat gold if you want to be the shining star of the night. I assume it's from their Auric Goldfinger collection.
All my life I've been in love with its color.
In terms of the feel and the comfort of the jacket, even the older Brionis were rather soft and comfortable. The modern one is even slightly softer, which I think is nice. The armholes in the modern jackets get a little smaller. On the older ones, they were a little roomier. Now, as you know, we're big fans of small armholes that give you a better range of movement, but if they're too small, it's also uncomfortable. On the interior, you have more pockets on the modern jacket, though stylistically, they're inset in the same way as the old pockets. Now, looking at most ready-to-wear jackets these days and their sleeves, they're typically cut rather slim. Personally, we're big fans of sleeves that are cut a little wider, especially the upper part, because it gives you more range of movement and leads to more comfort wearing the jacket in an everyday setting. In my experience, Brioni jackets feel comfortable. They feel definitely more comfortable and have a greater range of movement than with most ready-to-wear jackets. At the same time, they're not perfect. I wish the sleeve was even bigger. Looking at the different jackets, they seem to have the same sleeve size, so they didn't really update the sleeve too much. One of the things you typically don't get with most ready-to-wear jackets is fabric reserves, so you can make something bigger if you gain a few pounds. Brioni, on the other hand, offers quite a bit of cloth reserve for a ready-to-wear jacket. While in the older jacket, the sleeve lining and the body lining was still sewn on by hand, and you can see that by the irregular stitch. On the modern jacket, you can see that it was sewn in by machine. Functionally, I think I can't perceive any real benefit of a hand stitch. Typically though, overall, you can say that a hand stitch is more flexible than a machine stitch. And so if everything is hand stitched, your jacket will feel softer and more comfortable. Now, the sleeve lining on both jackets is sewn in by hand. The modern jacket also has this extra armpit sweat protector layer that the old one didn't have. Overall, both canvases or interlinings seem to be of high quality, with the modern ones being softer. So now the big question, is a Brioni jacket worth it or not? Let's break it down. Stylistically, Brioni appeals to someone who doesn't want something that is too outlandish in terms of the silhouette and the styling. Now, you can certainly get bold with fabrics. But in this day and age, you can also do that with lots of made-to-measure companies or bespoke options. I think Brioni is good for someone who doesn't want to think about a style and just buy something so they know what they see is what they get. For me personally, I'm not a fan of the predefined styles. I prefer side slits, I prefer a waterfall sleeve head, and a somewhat wider sleeve. In terms of workmanship and construction, you truly get a full canvas garment that is of high quality. Is it the highest quality that you would get from a bespoke tailor when it's all handmade? No, absolutely not. Is it on par with high-quality made-to-measure suits or other high-quality brands? Yes, absolutely. Considering the high prices Brioni charges, I would have expected more handwork. So overall, in terms of construction, I would say quality very good, value more on the below average side. But hey, that's a lot better than our Louis Vuitton duffel bag, which is made out of PVC and you pay a high price tag. If you don't believe me, watch that video here. Frankly, with all the online talk about a stylistic change of Brioni and how they had deteriorated, I was expecting more of a change on the inside of a jacket. And I was surprised how little had actually changed. It all is of very comparable and similar quality. Frankly, it's very similar to what we've seen in the Alan Edmonds video where we cut apart different shoes from different eras. There wasn't as much of a change as people make it out to be. Stylistically though, yes, there has been a clear change, and whether you like that or not is of course subjective. As a classic menswear enthusiast, I think I like the older style a little more, with lapels that are more in the 9 centimeter range, which is just a more classic width, not the 7.5 centimeters, which is just rather slim. And then there's of course the history and the name cachet of the brand Brioni. Just like with any other luxury brand, you pay an upcharge for that, and if you're in the market for that, you probably care to a certain extent about that. Now, if you purely look at the construction of the garment, at the fabric and the style, can you get a comparable garment elsewhere for much less money? Absolutely. And under that aspect, I think Brioni is not worth it. With all that being said, I think Brioni can be an exceptional buy when you find it second hand. Over the years, I've seen many Brioni jackets on eBay or at second-hand stores, and considering that at one point in time they made 70,000 suits per year, there are still a lot of them out there. So if you can find a Brioni suit or a jacket in a nice cashmere or silk or cotton blend in a cool color, and it costs you $100, $200, maybe $300, I think it's an exceptional value. Also, one thing to consider is that at the end of the day, all great brands can command a higher price for a comparable product than other lesser-known brands. That's just the gist of building great brands. With that being said, personally, for me, Brioni is not worth it at a new price level, but definitely when you find it secondhand or on places like Poshmark or eBay. If you're not sure how to shop for secondhand stuff, we have different videos about how to shop in a store or on eBay, what to search for, so check those out. The jacket I'm wearing here today is of course from Brioni. It has an unusual orange corally color. It is definitely a blend, I think, with some wool and silk. It's lightweight, has a nice hand, and is smooth. It's definitely on the longer side for me. It has the side vents still. It has the classic 9 centimeter lapel width and a gorge that is not too extreme. I bought the jacket because I liked the color shade, but I wasn't willing to do something custom in this color new because I knew I wouldn't get too much wear out of it. It's great for summer though, and I'm pairing it with a linen shirt and a Cooper collar that can't be buttoned on top from Spear & Mackay. My pants are a sand-colored pair of prototype chinos from Fort Belvedere, and my socks are navy and khaki from Fort Belvedere, and my shoes are Ralph Lauren purple label for Edward Green. They're an interesting penny loafer with a nice brown and an off-white suede. So quite bold, but I like it for summer and I thought it goes well with this kind of a jacket. My pocket square is also from Fort Belvedere. It is white with hand-rolled edges and hand-embroidered blue dots that pick up the color of the shirt, thus tying everything together. To complete the more dandyish, rakish color palette of my bold jacket and my shoes, I added a small boutonniere, which is handmade in Germany by Fort Belvedere, as well as a ring, which also has a coral or some form of semi-precious gemstone in it that is orange and picks up the color of the jacket.